Today we're going to be talking about the chuck, the whole chuck and nothing but the chuck. So what I've got here is 100% grass-fed local beef. This is coming from Manitoulin Island from an operation called Pure Island Beef, and they do an absolutely phenomenal job raising beef year-round. But that's probably why you're seeing a little bit of that yellow hue on that fat, on the fat here. And so it's not your screen, it's just basically because these animals are getting so much beta carotene in their diet, it turns the fat that's slightly yellower color. So with the chuck is this perfect cross-section between supportive and locomotive muscles. Now, the big muscles in the chuck are locomotive. These are the muscles that are carrying the majority of the weight of the animal. They are helping the animal lift and lower its head so it can eat food. And so because of that, there's a lot of muscles that do a lot of work. That means that these muscles have a little bit more texture, so they are considered tougher, but they also are a lot more flavorful because they're getting that much more energy to do all that extra work. So if you're looking for outstanding muscles for a pot roast, or you're looking for outstanding muscles to grind for your burger, and you're going to want to get it from the chuck. But there also are some supportive muscles. So there are movements that the shoulder is capable of that the animal just doesn't do. The animal doesn't do this with its arms. It doesn't do this with its arms. And so we're going to see some absolutely outstanding muscles that we consider are supportive, because they're there for the anatomy of the animal, but these aren't muscles that are, these aren't movements that the animal's doing a lot, and so therefore these muscles stay quite tender. And so yes, believe it or not, there's some outstandingly tender muscles in here, but then there are also some really flavorful muscles in here. So let's get started and have some fun with this chuck, shall we? First thing we're going to do is we're going to break it into all of its primary muscles. And so that's what this video is going to be concentrating on, is breaking this chuck into its primary muscles. The chuck is really comprised of two main sections. One is the actual carcass cavity, and the other one is the arm. It looks like one section, but it's really, the arm is laid right next to the cavity like so. And because it's always like this, because of the nature, this probably looks really weird on camera, but because of the nature of the way the animal moves, that's just how it looks when the carcass is hanging like that. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to separate the cavity from the arm. And so I'm going to go up here at the top. In this section here, this is my brisket. So my hook right now, I'm hooked into the brisket of the animal. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm separating basically the brisket from the clod, or the cross rib roast. And I'm just going to apply a bit of weight and allow gravity to help me out here. So look how beautiful and yellow that fat is. That's a great sign of beta carotene, which is a really good sign of omega-3 fatty acids. So I'm going to place this down before I bring it over to the bandsaw to make some cuts. What I've got here is the neck. This is what's called the bottom blade. This section here are my first 4 ribs. So these are braising ribs or 4 ribs. A lot of people who part of like the Jewish religion, they will refer to this as flanket. Right below that section, this is called the brisket. So I got brisket, braising ribs, bottom blade, neck. First muscle I'll remove will be my brisket. The brisket is my absolute favorite muscle. Whenever I'm cooking for a lot of people, this muscle, I will knock it out of the ballpark every single time. Why? Because it's just so flavorful. It's destined for awesomeness. Now, granted, this meat is already awesome, but this brisket is also, the muscle itself is awesome, coming from an amazing animal. I've got the recipe for an amazing meal. Okay, now I'm going to make a couple cuts on my bandsaw. First cut is going to be for the neck. I'm going to just remove the neck like so. Then I'm going to make a cut to cut off these brisket bones, or part of the sternum of the beef. Then I'm going to make a cut to remove this braising rib section from my blade section. So that's more or less what it's going to look like. All right. So after a few cuts on the bandsaw, we now have it broken up into its respective pieces. I've got my neck, and this is a great piece that I'm going to trim up, and this is where you get that really flavorful trim for your burgers or your ground beef. I have my bottom blade that I need to debone. These are my braising ribs, and as you can tell, I've chimed them, and my brisket. So now I'm just going to clean these up, and we'll talk about each one individually.